Alright, time you've all been waiting for, UVs. Now the first thing that I need to do is decide what's going to be mirrored and what's not. The most important areas are always the ones that you're going to be able to see at the same time. So right away I know the front of the chest, at least this row of faces, needs to not be mirrored. Also along the back. And I'm going to leave the top part of one leg unmirrored. I'm also going to leave top part of the arm unmirrored and the front of the face unmirrored. Now the reason why I want to decide now is because I don't want to UV map anything that's being mirrored 2 times. Waste of time. So the first thing I'm going to do is right click and convert to poly, and that'll kill the symmetry. So now I can move this and it won't affect the other side. So I'm going to take all of the polys that I am not mirroring, or that I am mirroring, sorry, and delete them, because they are going to be duplicated over from the mapped side. And one of the things you'll notice if you select a face and you hit delete and it has a vertex that it would get rid of, it asks you, do you want to delete them? So a way around it is to actually select vertices, and if you're hitting delete on a vertex, it assumes you really want to delete it. Inside of the mouth can be mirrored, no problem. Alright, so these are the areas that I think will benefit the most from not being mirrored. Because he's a pretty symmetrical character, because he's going to be pretty much naked, only wearing a small loincloth. I did make some tweaks on this between the last video and now, but nothing that I think was totally necessary for the video. It was just a lot of tedious stuff, adjusting proportions and whatnot. I did up the rings around the arm so that it would deform better. That was the only one that I wish I would have put in the capture. Alright, so this is what is not going to be mirrored. Every face on here will actually have its own portion of the texture map. So what I can do now is actually attach it. Hit F for front. And here's a really cool trick. If you want to grab only the vertices along the center so you can weld them, go ahead and select edge rings, and you'll get the ring all the way around the center. Hold down Control and click Vertex, and it'll convert to that same selection in vertex mode. Get rid of these. Go to Weld Options, and you'll notice it put the middle of the lips together, which is not what we want, so lower it down till they separate. There we go. Okay. So now it's all the way welded down the center. If not, because I think I used a soft selection, go ahead and you want to make sure you're not selecting anything through through the mesh. I can do the same thing again. Control, weld, and what you want to do is right now, before vertices, after vertices. It's not getting this stuff. So I need to turn it up. Okay, so that got everything. So now when I hit this, Control A is select all, just like in Photoshop, but I'll go over a lot of Photoshop ones too. Alright, so the only rings it has selected are the, whoa. Well, I guess that was good to know. Cap. Alright, so these are the areas that are all going to get their own UV map. Alright, I'm going to prepare my UV tools. First thing I need is a checkerboard material to see my spacing. So I want a checker. I normally, because of the scale that Max is set at for Blood Rain 2, a good setting for me is like 20 for each repeat. Up a level, make sure you show map in viewport, throw it on. Now I don't like to be distracted with shading. Select all, make sure it's all on material 1. So I'm going to go to view options, turn on vertex colors. Now you get no shading on this object. And as you can see, total mess. So, how do you start? Unwrap modifier. Man, that's messy. Now, I'm going to have to admit this is kind of weird for me because I am totally used to having 2 monitors set up, and this window is always on my other monitor, so this is going to be weird for me, but I'll try and work through it. Alright, first thing I want to do is make everything super small so that one, I know which areas have gotten attention and move them off the grid. Alright, hit F4 for wireframe, and I'm just going to go in and start selecting the polys that I want to do the first map. Oh, and by the way, here are the tools that I'm using for unwrap. This is called Chugnuts Unwrap Tools 1.4. You can get them from ScriptSpot, or you can just go to www.chugnut.com. I won't UV map without them. Again, just like using discrete dark, I've changed up my colors. I like blue, so everything's blue in here. Doesn't matter that yours are a different color. Alright, so I'm going to select the faces, and the way I like to do it is I think about it in terms perpendicular of what I'm selecting. I want it planar mapped. I hardly ever use anything but planar map. Sometimes I'll use cylindrical, but that's about it. And to get planar map, you do not need to add a UVW modifier. So this is about as perpendicular as I want to get. If I go any further down the sides, it's going to curve too much. Now, you might say, well, both of these are not perpendicular, but it's good to be able to paint what's familiar to you. We all know what a chest and a stomach looks like right side up, because that's how you always see it. You don't know how it you don't know what looks right and what looks wrong when the thing is sideways or at a 45-degree angle or upside down. You wouldn't sketch someone upside down, and all your reference material isn't going to be upside down, so why would you map it upside down? So you want this thing to look as much like the areas that they are going to be as possible, even if that means you might have to sacrifice a little bit of distortion. Alright, so I actually use, try and get it up here, planar map. So that throws it on. You can see a nice and neat little thing. And because every time you hit a planar map, it will put it back in the center, I like to move it off the side each time. So I kind of like to picture which areas I'm going to be able to, F2 for shade solid so that you guys can see this, which things I'm used to seeing it from. I'm used to looking at people from the side, so this makes sense for me to planar map from this angle. So as you can see right now, it's a pretty much of a mess. It's also welded to a lot of other things. I'll hit planar map and it will give me this. Now I use the freeform mode because it lets you do all the different items that you wish to do. You go to the middle pieces, you get rotate. You go to the side, you get scale. If you hold shift, it will constrain it to left and right or up and down. If you hold control, it will constrain it to the same dimensions. And if you hold alt, it will scale out from the center. Add shift to alt and you will scale in one of the directions from the center. Control and alt will scale from the center and keep the proportions. Display, show vertex connections. Can't underestimate how important that is. It shows you what welds up to what. So I can see right now that 248 goes up top. Number 1. Okay, so these things are on the same perpendicular now. That tells me they are lined up. Now when I slide it, what I try and do is think of pass a mental spline through the edge here, and then pass a mental spline through the edge here, and try and make it so that they're kind of averaged on each other. So the extremes to the left might not quite be touching, the extremes to the right might not quite be touching. So there's my average. I've got my weld set to 10, which means there's nothing I can't select that will not weld when I hit Control W. That's the maximum tolerance. Control W, Control W, and I just go in and select. Now the reason why I do this is because it averages where they are, so that you get very little stretching. And I'm sorry, got the vertexes turned on. Highlight verts. I opened someone's file one time that had that selected, and it saved my options ever since, and I can't get rid of it. Alright, so you see, no stretching so far. So now I'm going to do the back. Alright, so that's all perpendicular to the plane. I don't even see where that is, it's so small. Planar map. Display, show vertex connections. Now, what I have to decide is where is the seam? There are two areas that I suggest running it. The first is right down this line between the highlighted and the unhighlighted, which is good if your character's wearing a shirt, a jacket, a vest, any kind of material that would already have a seam there. You can disguise the seam super easy along your texture map, and I'll show you that when we get to the Photoshop section. Or you can disguise your map using then the other place to put it is straight down the back, and on a shirtless character I prefer that because it gives you one seam instead of two. The trade-off is when you're down the side, you have to end up painting your back upside down. because I actually unfold it like a sandwich board. The back would be like this, and the top of the head right here, or the rib cage right there, connects right in here. I make the neck face in and the arm face straight out. It's great when your character's wearing a shirt, but when they're shirtless, you're going to have to deal with 2 seams instead of 1. Now, when you do it with the split down the center, you have to deal with painting your back at a 45-degree angle, which I really don't like. But the fact that you only get 1 seam, I think, is pretty beneficial. So most of the time, I'll actually risk the warping and put it at a 90-degree angle instead of 45 degrees. So the easiest way to separate these, and I'm actually only going to UV map half of these since they're still identical, then mirror it over and weld it. Alright, so what I'm going to do, select all. Oh, the other thing is, what in Max, in order to make it so that when you select a face, it selects the equivalent in here, and when you select in here, it selects the equivalent there. In Max, the default is for that to be turned off. Very intuitive of Discrete. I'll have to take my hat off to them for that. But so you actually have to click here and then say select face. When you install the chug nut unwrap tools, it overwrites the Max default and it makes it automatically go into that mode. When you're not in that mode and you click in the viewport, it kills your UVW window for no reason. So, alright, selected all of this. Only going to select half. Alright, so 2 options. One, I can hit Control and press faces and it'll give me the face version. And I can hit Control B for break and it will break it off. Preferable though, because now we don't have these faces that are facing in this direction to kill the averaged normal option, I'm going to re-planar map, which will also break it off. So see how right now they're joined? I will hit planar map. It will give me a map with less distortion, and it's also separated. So right now I'm going to fix this little piece of distortion real quick. Right now I've got Sync 2 selected, so it's now see how this doesn't update in real time, you got to let go first? Well, if you've got a powerful computer, you can go to Options, Advanced Options, Constant Update in Viewports. So now, meow, you get an update in real time. Now, if you hold Shift, it will constrain your movements to left and right or up and down, which is really nice. Alright. So here's 0, and I'm going to move the pivot point down here so I can rotate. And 227 is all the way down here, so I'm going to hold Control, scale up. Alright, so again, think of the imaginary spline. And actually, this whole process for me has been replaced by a product called deep UV. These are the initial steps that now I just pretty much do primarily in deep UV, and it does it for all this relaxing, it does it for me. But because most of you guys don't have deep UV and it's not that hard to figure out how to export to deep UV and hit the relax button, I'm not going to do a tutorial on that, despite the fact it would speed this up. Planar map. Sync 2 allows you to select only a small part and it'll give you all of it. Control W, Control W, Control W. Now for the front of the neck, I am going to switch it from average normals to Z because I want all of the vertices here to line up perpendicular. Flip. And you're just going to have to put up with the fact that this is going to produce some stretching in the neck area. Average normals, planar map, Control and Alt for scale to the middle. And I can see that this needs to be rotated actually quite a lot. So I'm going to turn on soft selection, and then I'm going to make it be UV distance instead of XY, and turn it up. I'm actually going to change techniques here really fast. Sorry about that. I am going to put the seam down the side, and I'll show you why. The other reason why the side is good is because it most of the time will not be looked at as often as the front. So I'm going to go back a ways. I have my history set to 150, so it won't take too long. Turn soft selection off. Reverse all that hard work. I know it sucks, but rather than edit this out, I'm just going to show, I'm leaving it in to show this technique should you want to do it. Put it back up with the back. Planar map. And, yeah, turn that off. Now, this has a really cool just rotate 180 degree button. I like that. Now I'm going to show you why I like chug nut. Select all of these and hit the align U, and it will give you a perfect, let me rotate this a bit first. Aligns it vertical. Now, here's a cool thing. Rather than having to go in there and select all of that, I can be pretty rough with the selections, just dragging wherever I want. All right, Alt deselect. From over here. Now, these have already been mapped, so I can Alt drag and over top of them, it gets rid of that. Normally I would do this in two chunks, the top from here and the side of the neck, but it's going to get so much distortion in order to keep the seams gone. It's not really worth it. Now I'm going to use the Control T brings up the edit or select tools target weld, and here you can see why it's so nice to have. And this is going to take a little bit of work. And when I say deep UV is worth learning, I mean it. I mean it a lot. It would change this process from being, it took me from taking about a day to unwrap a model to taking a couple of hours. It's that much faster. Alright, so as you can see, a lot of stretching going on, but it is worth it because there are no seams on the neck. And I'm going to put... Alright, so right now this face is still a solid piece, but I want it separate. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse this. You lose nothing by doing that. It is not something that has to be done. Connect. I've never had a modifier stack that had more than 3 things on it. And out of the hundreds of models I've made, I've never had a problem with not having it as a stack at all times. Sync to, Control B for break, Control click to get it back into vertices, show vertex connection. Constant update, there we go. Now here's another thing I'm going to do that is not as, it doesn't initially seem that intuitive. You're like, but look at that, it introduces all kinds of stretching here. Yeah, but now when you're trying to solve how to paint this area, you have a straight line, and that is important. In Photoshop, as well as in 3D Studio Max, you can constrain things to using Shift. I'm probably gonna pay for that. Is not as nice as I'd like. Okay, alright. You understand the principle of getting the of doing this manual relax. Do the planar maps of the chunks, butt them up against each other, and weld the verts together. That's about all the patience I have for doing it that old way. Now I'm going to show you how to use Deep UV. It's really an awesome feature. Alright, so I can totally ignore how the stretching looks everywhere on here. The most important thing is making sure that I have seams where I want them. It's the only thing you still have to do in Max. Ignore back facing. Alright. Planar map it to get it off in a chunk, even though that gives you a bad seam. Unselect this row, which is where I actually want my seam to go. Planar map it. Use Max's built-in craptacular relax. Just enough to bring the seam out that I want. I want it on the other side. And the best thing about this is you really don't have to pay any attention to, flip this, show vertex connections. You don't have to pay any attention to the stretching, the distortion, all this wonkiness. The reason why Deep UV is so great is because it understands the face size. It knows the dimensions of the polygons. So when it goes to do a relax, rather than just trying to space everything evenly, it will actually try and figure out how to make every face happy by having a happy medium. Alright, that runs my thing down here. Go over here. Collapse that back down. I need a division from here to here. Alright, that's how I want my seams to work on the body. Now I'm going to take the areas that are not mapped correctly, but that I want like this. All, go back into faces, delete yes, go back in because it'll be easier to select them like this, collapse all. Clone to object, mirror on the X, no clone, attach, 3 for open, control click, weld, Control click to here. Sexy. And I can just go down the center, weld, weld, weld away. Alright, there is my chunk for the body. Collapse this. Now it's pretty messy, right? Alright, gotta cut this thing in half. Okay. Now, right hemisphere, map selected. Brings up my, and I know my window isn't set up to work to capture exactly right. All I do is select this and hit relax. I might do it one more time for good measure. And now I will go send UV update and close it. Oh, totally messed up. Kill that. You have to convert this to an editable mesh before you send it over. Otherwise, the UVs don't always transfer back. I have no idea what the rest of DPV does. All I use is the relax. But it sucks that I have to use a third-party program in order to get that simple. So file, export, send UV update, close. Oh, look at that. Now that is pretty. They're all the same size. There's no stretching. That's what I like to see. Even the neck, even that problem area. Yeah, it's got some stuff going on, but for the most part, very usable. Collapse all, convert to editable poly. I might see if I can fix it any better. Yeah, it looks like it. A will turn off. And you might say, well, why not move the map off of why not move the neck off of the map? Because I would rather have not a ton of detail there and not worry about a seam. Even with, oh wow, that really, let me try that again. Map selected. I think I need to turn the area greed up. After a while, it just sort of starts to get smaller. Doesn't actually fix. Well, I'm actually gonna say, because of how dense he is and the fact that I can't get this neck to work right, I am gonna go ahead and chop it off. I'm going to do so at least along where there's going to be a shadow. And from here forward, I'm going to do my relaxing in Deep UV. They've got a free demo available. It's very affordable if you're already working and student want to purchase it or win it through the game of Kazaa or LimeWire. Oh, that's bad. I shouldn't say that. Planar mat to get it off, and I'm going to break it on the back. Control T for target weld, and I like to do my relaxing as I go. Relax, okay. That's tasty. Nice. Alright, now I'm going to actually arrange set up the back the way that I'm going to paint it. Actually, pretty much can leave most of this alone except for the arm. Always like Actually, no, I'm just going to leave it like that. I don't have anything geometric on this guy. If he had straps, it would be pretty pivotal to make these two straight. So this isn't the best example. But what I am going to do, and this is pretty important, is grab these, constrain them to a straight, so that they are in the same position. It's pretty important, actually. Not them. You want them in a straight position. Why? Because Photoshop and Max both like to work vertical. Your pixels are square. Anytime you can make an item that, or anytime you can do a piece of definition with a straight line that either goes up or down versus left to right, you will be able to get it sharper and more detailed without it looking jaggy. And I'm going to introduce some stretching, even though I said I wasn't. I'm going to do it on the bottom here. Just a little bit. Not the full amount. anytime you know you're going to be painting straight lines across, you want it, if at all possible, in a straight line. So that piece looks good. Now the face. Face is probably the most important part. Actually, first thing I'm going to do, because it normally makes it easier to map, select all, deselect the areas I've already worked on. Normal mapping, box. And that will normally give me at least some semblance of something to work with. Yeah, it looks like actually it helped out a lot. Grow. Same deal applies here. Think about it in planes. And I actually don't like to use deep UV on the face. The reason why is that having no stretching is not as good as making it easy to paint, because ultimately that's where you as an artist and I as an artist have to bring in our painting skills. And if you're fighting with trying to figure out what this thing looks like at this awkward angle, it's not going to be fun. Anyone who watched my I have another UV mapping head tutorial on my site will be familiar with this. And actually, I totally lied to you. I might be using deep UV. Yeah, I'm going to be using deep UV. So now I don't have to be as picky about the way normally I always leave the ears connected to the head, but when they're this long, that's not very feasible. Looks like I got this inside mouth part. I want that somewhere else. Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit awkward working with only one monitor when you're used to two. Alright, looks like I have all of the head selected. seem to either be missing one, or I've got something that's not welded. Oh, there we go. Alright. Collapse all. Map selected. Map selected. And actually, in order to keep your great face layout that will allow you to easily paint the face, you have to go in and unselect it for the initial unwrap. You want to keep the parts that are very recognizable and very important to getting the character right. You want to do them on a separate pass by themselves. Relax these. Alright. That looks good. These. Actually, I'm going to leave them. They're close enough. Send UV update. Wrap. Grab the ear. Planar map. Always remember which parts are important for your texture maps to look nice. I'll give you a hint. It's not the inside of the ear. So while the outside will be seen more, the inside will be seen less. So a lot of times, despite the fact that it wants more, I'll give it less. Planar map. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, this is taking way too long. You will be, for every extra 10 minutes you spend on your UV map, it will probably cause you about an hour's less grief in Photoshop. It's really that important. Alright, good stuff in here. I don't really know why this piece didn't get adjusted. I'm actually going to nix the neck on this side. I think I had originally anyway in it. Kind of came back on me. Not only that, but I think I'm going to kill a row of these, because what's going to happen is, you see how dense, much space they have, because they're stretched, they're supposed to butt up against these, which are the right size, which is not going to work as well as I've never even made a model in edit mesh mode. Much better, much better. Mo better. I like adjusting things to taste sometimes, just if I know it's going to help me. Like this. Now the legs, which are going to be a lot of fun, I'm sure. say that is that for this aspect of the tutorial. I'm going to map the legs on my own, and then I'll start the tutorial back up when I get to actually packing the map together. So you can see so far that there's very little stretching going on. The face is going to be pretty easy to paint. Ah, I know what I need to do. The nose, because I didn't have deep UV work on it, is stretched. I think I'm going to see if I can do this one more time. Again, not an edit mesh. Sucksores. Ain't that awesome? Let me save this real quick. What do you know? No deep UV shortcuts. There we go. That's much more like it. One thing that even if you don't have deep UV, you need to make sure you get enough room for the bottom of the nose. Yes, no one's going to look at it, but until you leave the space for it out of your UV map. And then it looks butt ugly. Then I weld these, no sense wasting the space in between. Now, just real quick, I'll show you another cool feature of DPV. Right now, see how all the squares are different sizes? Well, we can solve that by asking DPV to pack. Again, because it keeps track of how big the faces are. Alright. Options. You want to check equal areas, preserve orientation, no space filling. Pack selection. Now, that didn't work. Oh, I see what happened. No, I don't. I'm going to quickly throw a reset X form. Almost anytime you have a problem, doing a reset X form will fix you right up. It's like formatting your hard drive. Only it's your model. Actually, that's not a very good analogy. You don't want to format your model. Pack selected. Export. Send UV update. Pink. Ah, that's what it is. I got a great max crash. So, go ahead and manually exit. I will get this to work. Pack selected. Send UV update. There we go. Craptastic. It updated. Maybe I'm gonna need to close both of them. There we go. You've got all your areas equal now, no stretching, real nice.